Hello, friends, and welcome back to r/ProRevenge. Today, we have a brand new set of great stories for you to enjoy. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications so you don't miss a new video every single day. Sit comfortably. Here we go. It's better to be safe than sorry. My aunt is a paramedic and used to drive an ambulance in England. One afternoon, she and her colleague were driving along a motorway in work time when she noticed a BMW weaving in and out of traffic, driving well over the speed limit. The driver was also braking in the fast lane in front of cars and generally being an all-around a-hole. Before too long, the driver, going around 80 to 90 miles per hour, spun out and careened off the road into a ditch. Regardless of his a-holery, they immediately headed for the scene to offer aid. Amazingly, the driver only suffered very minor injuries and was refusing to receive any medical aid. He needed to be somewhere. My auntie, however, wanted to make sure she did her job properly and refused to let the man leave or get out of the car. She told him to stay still and remain seated whilst they checked for any neck or back injuries, which he clearly didn't have. Being the professional that she was and wanting to make absolutely sure that no further injury could arise, she called in the fire brigade to cut the man out of his car. And they effing did. They cut the roof off this guy's BMW to allow for easier access. To say he was PO'd was an understatement, but as she said to him, it's better to be safe than sorry. Maybe he'll think about the consequences of driving like an a-hole in the future. And our next story. Completely outflanked my a-hole coworker. So this just happened about 6 months ago. I got a job in a different department than the one I started in. Great job, really. I really like my manager and my supervisor, but my coworker in this department is a bit weird. She's a neat freak, and you can't set or leave anything on her desk without permission. You can't touch her chair because she has back problems. She slaves all over her job and whines constantly about how much work she has. I started my role and floundered a bit. I didn't really get training, and it was a struggle for a while, but I slowly got the hang of things and got pretty good at what I do. Except my coworker has decided that she doesn't like me and has started picking fights over stupid stuff. And I do mean stupid stuff. Like if I was working on something and she needed something taken care of, she would ask me to do it. And opposed to waiting for me to finish what I was doing, she would start yelling at me. Or if I did something that annoyed her, like ask her what time she wanted to take her lunch, that would be another scream fest as she shrieked at me for not knowing what her schedule was and bothering her at her sacred desk. It got bad enough that we both got called into a meeting where our manager told us that we needed to work things out or they would make changes, and left it there. That improved things for a little while, and then she was back to where she was before. Then I realized that she was keeping a log of every single mistake I had ever made. Seriously, put a box on the wrong shelf, goes in the log. Leave a power supply out or something by accident, it goes in the log. It got to the point that she complained to my manager when she thought my clothes weren't clean enough to wear to work. We work in a warehouse. I don't wear nice clothes in my role. And I ended up having an embarrassing conversation with my manager. I started to retaliate by going to my supervisor whenever she flipped out on me to complain that this wasn't acceptable. We're supposed to be on the same team, and screaming at your coworkers isn't kosher. Management agreed with me, and more than a few discussions were had with her about her attitude. So the Cold War went on for a while, and to their credit, my management team tried their best to make it work. They had both of us take a conflict management resolution course. We had our conflict styles analyzed. They coached us. The thing was, they pretty much came to the same conclusion that I did. She didn't like me and didn't care if I knew it and wanted me gone. So we finally had a blow-up that was bad enough that she decided it was time to break out the big guns. She took the log of my sins to our manager to show how incompetent I was. She got shot down in a hurry on that one. Apparently, keeping a mistakes log on your colleague is not considered to be a productive part of teamwork. Also, after all this went down, I finally forced her to have a discussion with me, and I just stood my ground. I told her that I'm not hard to work with. I'm glad to help out with stuff, but I needed her to be reasonable about things. Management agreed with me and gave us some suggestions that, to her credit, she attempted to partake in, and things were okay for a couple of months. Then my wife called me one day to confess to me that she'd come down with a medical problem that she'd been hiding from me because she was embarrassed about it. It shook me up a bit, but I went and talked to my supervisor and I felt a lot better afterwards. I went back to work and immediately got grilled by the coworker. Where did I go and what was I doing? Talking with our supervisor. About what? Something private. She kept badgering me to the point that I had to ask her to stop and leave it alone because I didn't want to talk to her about it. Well, this pissed her off something fierce. The next day when we were working, she asked me a question about something, and when I responded, she completely lost her mind and accused me of treating her poorly and demanded to know what the problem was. I told her I had some problems at home, and if it was affecting my work, I was sorry. She told me I was full of crap, was lying about stuff to try and gather sympathy for me because I was so incompetent at my job. And that was it. It was a war. I put down the equipment I'd been working with and left the room, and when I walked away, she was taunting me. Why don't you go tell your mommy how mean I was to you? Why don't you go tell your mommy how I was mean to you? Because she guessed correctly that I was heading right to the supervisor. Well, the supervisor was pissed off, wrote down the entire incident, wrote her up, and filled in our manager too, who was also not very impressed. As for me, the gloves were off. This bee had to go. So I picked up my perfect weapon, the job she'd been dog-effing around in the last few months. We'd recently gotten a huge computer upgrade. In the role that she covered, she should have been able to work a lot faster at her job. Instead, she took time pointing out all the flaws in the new system and filling her mistakes diary with all my errors and wrongdoings. One day, I even caught her taking pictures of equipment that I'd worked on. As it turns out, I'd had to cover for her a couple of times, and the job she was doing did not take the amount of time she was allotting to it. I managed to finish off an entire day's work for her in the span of 90 minutes, and the next time she took a day off, the same thing happened. 90 minutes or less for everything that would normally take her a full 8 hours. So I told my supervisor, and the next time she took a day off, she got staff from another department to cover her spot for me, and one person posted a result slightly slower than mine, and the other person was actually a little faster than I was. So now my supervisor was in agreement with me. She was dog-effing, and we both knew it. Time to spring my trap. Our management team goes absolutely giddy for efficiencies. Anything that makes you work better or faster will actually get listened to and usually approved. So I sat down and wrote a proposal that essentially broke our work areas down into two zones. One being the returned equipment area, and the other being the processing/configuring area. I magnanimously offered to take all the processing and configuring off her plate and would allow her to deal with all the returned equipment. On the surface, this looked like I was offering to do even more work than before, simply so that we could stop butting heads at work and be more efficient. In reality, I was offloading almost half of my entire job onto her in exchange for something that she'd been screwing around with and trying to look busy doing. It went even better than I expected. I submitted my proposal to our supervisor, who loved it. She in turn asked our manager to review it, and she thought it was excellent as well. And then they asked my colleague for her thoughts on the whole thing, and she flipped her effing lid. In email, no less. And I know that because my supervisor just forwarded the original email to her, and she hit reply all to it. She demanded that they immediately trash this idea, called me lazy and stupid, and implied that she had way more seniority than me, told them that I wasn't smart enough to do her job, that I was discriminating against her, and threatened to take legal action. Management stalled on this a little bit because she was a longtime employee and she was making some very damning accusations. But my supervisor and manager had documented the litany of explosions I'd had to deal with while working with her, and all of our stories matched up. As a coup de grace, when I got called into HR to give my side of the story, I pointed out that the log and pictures she'd been taking amounted to a campaign of harassment and was causing me to work in a toxic working environment. HR transferred her to another department where she proceeded to infuriate, vex, and anger anyone she worked with while being given a workload about 1/6 of everyone else in the department. After about 2 months of this, the notice came out from HR that she was no longer part of the company. No less than 15 coworkers stopped by to congratulate me for being the one to finally outlast her. As a victory party, we reorganized the working area in the back, and we got rid of her desk and chair and pictures and anything else that she might have contaminated with her insane attitude. She was there almost 20 years, maxed out salary scale, 5 weeks of vacation per year, decent benefits, retirement plan, all of it. Now she can't even use us for a reference because she left on such bad terms. I don't even want to know what she's up to because she was so unpleasant to deal with. But I can't imagine finding a new job at anything other than fast food as possible with a 15-plus year gap in her resume. And our last story. Bosch replaced me with unpaid labor. My job was running a company's Instagram account, content creation and planning, influencer outreach, responding to DMs and comments, etc. A little over 2 weeks ago, the company decided to replace me with my boss's 15-year-old niece and give her volunteer hours instead of paying me. I didn't even get any notification from my boss that I was getting fired, and only found out about this after seeing my boss tell her niece that she'd be replacing me in a DM sent from the company Instagram. They may have fired me, but I can still access the account. For those who don't know, engagement rate determines everything on Instagram. Posts with higher engagement get shown higher in people's feeds and explore pages, and posts with high engagement get shown in the top post section of hashtags the photo is tagged with, among other things. So I've been going to the account and quietly removing 5 to 10 followers per day, with little to no new followers each day, and the number of active followers dropping due to both my actions and people legitimately unfollowing by themselves. The engagement rate has gone from a little above average for a small account, 6 to 7%, to almost nothing, less than 1%. They also got hit with a takedown notice after the boss's niece stole an influencer's pictures and tried to pass it off as her own on the company account. Good luck recovering. Hey guys, thank you all for watching the video, and I'll see you in the next one.